Okay, so there's, in regards to the current, crisis with the virus, there's been two, two main changes within the workers' comp industry. And I'm speaking from the perspective of employers, policyholders. The two main areas are, as you might imagine, payroll, which affects premium, and then also claims. So obviously, the first big thing has to do with payroll of companies. And that is because a lot of companies are having a massive reduction in work. Workers' compensation premiums for most small, medium-sized companies, if they're not law sensitive, even if they are law sensitive, the premium is based off of payroll. And the question is, in the insurance industry, is what happens when you have a sudden drop-off in payroll, and also what happens when you have a bunch of pay for idle time, whereby companies are paying their employees not to work. At first, the insurance industry's response under NCCI, the quasi-national rating bureau, was to say that pay for idle time should go into whatever that employee normally did. So let's say you had a roofer, you were paying him, to not work to try to keep him going. The insurance industry at first said we would treat that as normal roofing time, which was a little outrageous. About a week after they issued those guidelines, they reversed course completely and said that we need to have a new classification code that will create no premium, and that idle time, due to the virus, as long as you keep track of it, will generate no premium. So that's, I guess, my first tip. If you are paying your employees not to work, keep track of it. When the audit comes due, present to the insurance company. They'll put it into a classification code that generates no premium, and it will eventually reduce your bill. The other thing is, now, if you have a workers' comp policy that's on guaranteed cost, get an endorsement now if you've had a sudden reduction in your premium. Insurance carriers should do this, and if you've had if you expect over the course of the year a 10, 25, 30% reduction in your payroll, you should be paying less in your work comp premiums. The way to do that is to get the policy endorsed to have better estimates than there were when the policy started. That'll reduce your current bills at least by whatever you're paying. And again, if you are paying your employees for idle time, let your insurance company know. Keep track of that pay. Let them know at the audit and make sure that gets put into the correct classification code. This is guidance from NCCI, the quasi-rating bureau, and the insurance carriers should follow this. That's on the one side in terms of payroll. The other side is, are there going to be claims that are generated out of employees that have been infected with the virus? And the answer is likely. It's going to depend a little bit on what state you're in. Where I am in Illinois, they recently had an emergency amendment to the rules of evidence for the Work Comp Commission, and there is now a presumption, rebuttable, that if you're a frontline employee, if you're working in a whole slew of industries and you come down with the virus, that there's a presumption that it came out of work. What this means is that companies are going to be facing a whole lot of claims if their employees get infected with this virus. If you're on a loss-sensitive plan, you may very well be paying more in claims for these employees that are covered under workers' comp. The challenge for the employee will be to figure out, did this injury, was it caused in the course of their employment? In Illinois, that'll probably be easier than most other states, but if they can prove it, more likely than not, then they will be able to file a claim, and there will be additional costs for employers, either directly if they're under a loss-sensitive plan, or down the road through the experience modification factor. No one's quite sure how it's all going to pan out, but it's very likely there are going to be a significant amount of claims for employees that came down with this, and there's going to be a significant amount of litigation before the various workers' comp commissions around the country. There's going to be fights over, did the virus actually cause this injury at work, or was it something you picked up from a family member? That's something you're going to have to fight with down the road. Right now, in terms of costs, what I'd say is, if your payroll has been shrunk significantly, talk to your insurance carrier, get an endorsement to the policy, and get a reduction on your current year. That's the sort of first thing you can do if you're facing the struggle in your business to make sure they have good estimates and to make sure that your monthly bills go down commensurate with whatever you think the best estimate is for your payroll. And then down the road, you're likely going to have some claims out of it if you have employees that are continuing to work. And that is, I think, it's about my 10 minutes. I think that's my sort of what we know right now as to how the industry is going to be affected. There might be some more things down the road with higher rates, or maybe some insurance carriers going under. We don't know yet. But that is what I know right now about this crisis.